What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the College Sports Connection podcast, where Double A, Alex, and AJ host the Mid-American Conference Best.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the CSC podcast. All action all the time. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me, as always, it's AJ the Guru.
What's going on, everybody?
AJ, welcome back. Week 0 is in the books. Unfortunately, not a win for the Bobcats, but we are now officially into Week 1. We'll recap the Bobcats versus the Aztecs here in just a moment, but we're officially in Week 1, where all 12 MAC teams will play college football this week. How excited are you?
Very excited. You look at the slate of games, there's a ton of great games. There's a ton of great opportunity for the Mid-American Conference to pull an upset. So I think we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But you mentioned OU and San Diego State. What a great game that was.
That was a fun game. That was sadly a heartbreaking game for the Bobcats. I think a little bit of a nervous game for the Bobcats too. Seeing Curtis Work go down in the first half. It sounds like he thinks he's okay. I know that Coach Albin told the press last week that he wanted to get Curtis back to Ohio, have him, run through some tests, make sure everything was good. Curtis was upset he didn't get to go back in. And with the result that ended up coming out of this game, I can understand it. CJ Harris, I thought, did a nice job being very cold coming into this game to try to finish it out. He still had 203 passing, a touchdown, but the 3 picks were those were the difference in the game.
Yeah, they really were. You look at Harris, overall the other game, he was 18 of 41 for 203 yards, 1 touchdown, but you mentioned those 3 interceptions. Those 3 interceptions came at pretty inconvenient, pretty costly times for the Bobcats. Curtis Walker was 8 of 10 for 75, averaged 7.5 yards per throw. Does Ohio win it with Curtis? Who knows? It's going to be a story. It's going to be a mystery to the end of time. But I don't know. That is a story in itself of this game. But I also think a story of this game that may not be talked about as much as it should is the performance of Ohio's defense.
Yeah, I think San Diego State did not. They played a lot of bend don't break on defense, as did the Bobcats. Actually, kind of looking at the team stats just a little bit closer here, Ohio outgained San Diego State in first downs. They were far better in third down efficiency. They were 2 for 2 on fourth down, had more total yards. They're just looking at this, the big difference was the turnovers, time of possession. Ohio led in that category as well. But I think when you really, really look at it, defensively, Bryce Houston, absolute stud for that defense. 13 tackles, 7 solo. He came out and really played. Austin Brawley and Justin Burchett, they played pretty well as well. They combined for 14 total tackles, couple pass breakups. This really wasn't a bad defensive game at all. And I know that coming into the season, there wasn't really concern for the Ohio defense. I mean, they played Toledo to 17 points in the MAC championship last year. Which not an easy feat if you remember how well Toledo could really move the ball on teams. But I think there was a question of, okay, how would they stack up on the road at a quality San Diego State team? And I think they answered that test. They really played a lot of bend don't break, and they forced them to field goals. They forced them to, just a couple minor mistakes that gave San Diego State the win. And this game was a lot closer than the score indicated.
It really was. And you look at the kind of like the bend don't break. A lot of times where inside the red zone, really, OU's defense really stood up, and like you mentioned, forced those field goals. Had one crucial error that, in my opinion, really did change the momentum of the game because we've seen it so many times, and that was the San Diego State scoring going into halftime, the clock
Yep.
expiring.
Yeah,
Um,
that touchdown was it just Redmond was wide open
he
right
was
there.
because it was 3-3.
Hmm.
If OU's defense had just held on going into halftime, scored at three, would have been a phenomenal feat for the Bobcats.
Well,
Um,
and I think when you look at it too, Mark Redmond, he was their MVP. He had 2 touchdown catches in that game. Their only 2 touchdowns
with
in that
it,
game.
yeah, even if you hold,
That's the difference.
yeah, even if you hold them to a field goal, there, you're still sitting fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, the touchdown late really did kind of, I think, that's one of the times the defense broke, and
Hmm.
it did end up being costly for the Bobcats.
No, I agree, and that's tough loss on the road to San Diego State. The Bobcats do come home this week. They will take on Long Island University at Peden Stadium at noon. We will get into that here shortly, but we have 3 days of MAC schools playing football. We'll start with the Thursday slate. We've got two fun games, I think. One's a little bit more fun than the other solely on who I think wins. But we've got Kent State taking on UCF tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Or tomorrow night, Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Then we've got St. Francis taking on Western Michigan at Western Michigan, also at 7 o'clock. Those games will be aired on Fox Sports 1 and ESPN Plus, respectively. I think the MAC goes 1-1 here.
Hmm.
Kent State, they lost 11 starters last year, or from last year's offense. I don't see them winning this game, unfortunately. It's a it's not it's just not in the cards for them, I don't think. I think you got guys like Khalil Saunders who, you know, he's got to lead this defense. Um, he was in 10 games last year, he had 55 tackles. Um, he's going to be the leader of Kent State right now. They've got the Purdue transfer, the quarterback, Alamino,
Yeah.
who he's got the key, he's got to the keys to the offense. But I mean, we'll see. This, they replace literally all 11 starters on offense. Maybe
Yeah.
that gives Kent State a slight advantage because how do you scheme against an offense that's you don't know?
Right,
I
absolutely.
don't know.
It's interesting, and you know, and UCF, I mean, they're good. They're not as good as they once were without they were a couple of years ago with Scott Frost. And we talked about it too, kind of going into the season. There were just you talk about 11 starters. There are just so many unanswered questions with Kent State. We
Mhm.
won't really know who Kent State truly is until you know week 3, week 4, uh, especially going into conference play. I think that's when we'll really find out who Kent State is. But this is a great opportunity for them to go down to, I believe they play UCF's in Orlando, right?
Yeah, it's down there
Yeah, yeah,
at UCF at the bounce house.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's a great opportunity for them to get on TV, get that first, because for some reason, Kent State, the past couple of years, has just played a ruthless non-conference schedule.
Mhm.
Um, and so this is another great opportunity for them. But you're right. I think with these two games tomorrow night, I think the MAC does go 1-1.
So looking at Kent State a little bit closer, when they scheduled this game a couple years ago, they had no idea that they'd be replacing all 11 starters on offense. They'd be replacing their head coach, Sean Lewis, now out at Colorado. That UCF would be a Power 5 school. I mean, just a lot has changed in the course of time since they scheduled this game. That being said, good luck to Kent State. Obviously, we're pulling for them. Would love to see them secure a Power 5 victory on the road. The last 2 times these two schools met up, they went. Kent State went 2-0 against them. Once at Kent State, once down at Central Florida, back when they were still a MAC opponent. So a little bit of former action taking on some current action. Good luck to UCF and to Kent State as well.
Yeah,
St.
without a
Francis,
doubt.
Pennsylvania coming into Western Michigan. This is a huge, huge, huge opportunity for Lance Taylor to get Western Michigan going in the right direction, and he's got to do it quick. This is a team that, with what it looks to be, and I haven't seen the depth chart yet, so if anybody's seen it, please send it my way. Hayden Wolf is going to start and take over the keys of the kingdom on offense at quarterback. This is a quarterback who played multiple years over at Old Dominion, played really well. He's coming in career 5,000 plus passing yards. You got to trust the quarterback who has the experience. You've got other guys on this roster who are, in a quarterback room that's 5-6 quarterbacks deep.
Yeah.
You got to trust the guy who's got the most game experience. Hayden Wolf is that guy. I like what he does. Shout out to our Western Michigan listeners for constantly reminding us with love and care that Hayden Wolf was on this roster. Transfer portal is hard to keep up with, kids. But I really think Western Michigan, if they can set the tone early, they return one of the best defenses in the MAC from a year ago.
Mhm.
And if they can stay on top of that, I think they take care of St. Francis, and they don't do it the way Akron did last year with getting an overtime win. They take care of them in regulation and win by double-digit scores.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that game too because Akron it was Akron, and ended up being like what 50 something to 50 something.
It was 30-23.
Well, for some reason that was more. But either way, that was a tough game. But this is a great opportunity for the Broncos out of Western Michigan. You know, you mentioned Wolf taking over, but that quarterback room is deep. There are guys to all those guys have played to some degree. And so they're in this kind of the same boat, I think, in my eyes, as Kent State in regards to we're not going to truly know who Western is until that week 3, week 4 going into conference play. But this is a fantastic start or fantastic opportunity to get a home game week 1 and get in front of your fans. Shake some of the cobwebs out because I do believe Western does have one of, if not the best offensive line in the conference, led by Gideon. With him coming back, I feel like he's been there forever. But I think this is a great opportunity for the Broncos to establish who they are because with a new coach, new quarterback, new system, there's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of unanswered questions. I think we're gonna have a lot of those questions answered tomorrow night.
I think so, and that'll be big for Western Michigan. Start the season 1-0, and use that momentum to kind of carry them through the rest of the way. I mean, just looking at the rest of their non-conference slate, they have to travel to Syracuse next week. They're at Iowa the week after. Then they get 2 conference games, then they're down at Mississippi State. So build a little momentum early. I don't think Syracuse is completely out of reach, depending on what we see out of Western Michigan next week.
Not at all.
But again, it's gonna depend on what we see. Syracuse, their last season, they were not stellar. I mean, they went 6-6, 7-6. Yeah, 7-6 last year. So not an exceptionally great team. I mean, they had a close game against Clemson. Big win over number 15 NC State. But to round out the season, they lost 5 of their last 6, and then they lost their bowl game to Minnesota. So Syracuse, I think a quality opponent, definitely a Power 5 opponent, but let's just have Western Michigan focus on this week first, and we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Friday slate, we have 3 great games. Well, really 2 games I'm really excited about. One game I'll be at. Got the info today. I'll be at Howard at Eastern Michigan on Friday. It's a 7:30 kick on ESPN Plus. Really looking forward to that game. That one's going to be a lot of fun. Good opportunity for Eastern Michigan fans to come out, see their 2023 edition of the Eagles, and they've got plenty to be excited about. They've got to replace, the quarterback, and I think they'll do it. I think they'll have, they'll have all the tools in place. This is not a team who Chris Creighton is just like, nah, good luck, guys. You got this. I think, he's going to have Austin Smith ready to go. Austin Smith played a bunch last year anyway. This first game, though, you're relying a lot on Samson Evans, just to see what can Samson do for us this year. You know, you're
Mhm.
going to have Jalen Jackson out there as well at running back. You know, he's going to do some good stuff for this offense. It's going to be really really interesting. Tanner New, obviously, you know, this is a lot of seniors for this Eastern Michigan team this year. This is a good offense. You had 9 wins last year. Taylor Powell, there's not much of a drop off from him to Austin Smith, I don't think. You know, we'll see. You know, it's a very we'll see. Um,
Yeah,
but I think
absolutely.
Howard
There's a
was
lot of
awful
will
last
see
year.
here.
2-10 last year. Howard
Yeah.
was. You got to win this game in blowout fashion, I think.
Yeah, we've talked about it too. There's a lot of will see, especially the first couple of weeks of the season. But you're right. I talked about Eastern as a team who I would not be surprised to see win the division and play in Detroit. But we talked about, Samson Evans. He was a kid who really was on notice last year against Arizona State. He had a couple of great weeks. And I believe he dealt with some injury later on in the year. I think kind of fell off. But
Mm-hmm.
we talked about it too. Austin Smith. He's a guy who's played a ton. Um, I think Coach Creighton would be extremely confident in his ability um, to lead the team, to lead the Eagles here, especially week one. It's a great feeler for Eastern Michigan to figure out what they have going into the season. And like I said, you'll be there, which is going to be great. Um, and we were at Eastern last year, had a blast. But yeah, I think and I think Austin Smith started that game too, didn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
A 50-31 loss to Buffalo. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, this is a great opportunity for the Eagles. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. They're a team. I think they're gonna catch the attention of a lot of people here as we get into conference play. But especially if they can put on notice week one, it'll be a very positive thing for them.
Well, and I think that's the thing is right now Eastern is they've played so well the last couple of years. People now know who they are. They're a known commodity. They're not gonna sneak up and surprise anybody. I mean, knocked off Arizona State last year. You know, in the years prior, you've knocked off Purdue, you've knocked off Illinois. Like this is not a team who is not a known commodity anymore. They are very well known. Sure, they still get the label of being a MAC school, but teams take them a little bit more serious now, which is great for the program and for Chris Creighton. But yes, that game is a 6:30 on ESPN Plus. Moving on to the last 2 games of the Friday slate. 2 games I'm really, really excited about. We'll start with Central Michigan at Michigan State in what is an interesting rivalry, if you will. I don't know that I would really call it a rivalry, but we're going to pretend it's a rivalry. You know, all time against Michigan State. Central Michigan is 3-8. Michigan State's won the last 4. 2009, though, Central Michigan won in East Lansing 29-27. And then back when they played in 1991 and 1992, Central Michigan went back to back before losing in 93. I 2018 was a close matchup for these two. It was an 11-point win in favor of Michigan State. I almost feel like this one's a coin flip. Michigan State to me, Mel Tucker, I think he's a fine coach. I'm not impressed. I am not impressed with Michigan State
Yeah.
at all right now. I think Central Michigan comes out, they push them, they play them tough, they play them hard. This is a Michigan State team who is going to struggle. They won 5 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
5 games. You know, they barely, you look back at they played Western Michigan in week 1. They needed 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to pull away from Western Michigan.
Yeah.
They were only up 7 or 8 points going into the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Western Michigan was not great last year.
No, they weren't, and they have been pretty below average with the amount of money they're paying Mel Tucker to lead the Spartans.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is an opportunity. I would not be shocked if Central were to go in there and play this. This is gonna be one of those games where it's either going to be extremely close or a blowout. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
there's any in between, but I don't think that it's not out of the realm of possibility that or Central comes out winning this game. I would not be entirely shocked.
So my thought is Central wins this game close, or like you said, they just get the doors blown off of them by Michigan State. And I think you're right. I don't think there is a any other outcome. It's either a close win for the Chips or a blowout for Sparty. That one's going to be a lot of fun. That one is over on Fox Sports 1 at 7:00 on Friday. Really looking forward to that one. We'll be keeping tabs on that one while I'm at Eastern Michigan. And then the last one of the day, the Confusion Bowl, as it was tabbed back in the 1940s. The newspapers down in Miami called it the Confusion Bowl. The Dayton newspapers called it the Confusion Bowl. We got Miami, Ohio taking on Miami, Florida. The Red Hawks versus the Hurricane. The Miami versus the U. There's been a lot of jawing back and forth between the fan bases on Twitter this week, and I'm excited for this one. This one's going to be a lot of fun over on the ACC network at 7:00 on Friday night. Down in Florida, this one's going to be officially at the Hard Rock Stadium. I'm pumped for this. Miami Gardens, it's Battle of Miami, whatever you want to call it. This one's going to be a good one.
Yeah, without a doubt, this is the one we've had circled on the calendar really since the end of last year. We knew this was going to be the case. You talked about some jawing back and forth. Gabbert said we're going to show them we're the real Miami, and somebody came out with a diss track and all that stuff. But again, this is this game where the Hurricanes better pay attention because the Red Hawks this year are not a slouch, in my opinion. They've got weapons all over the field. They've got, one thing too. I think Miami has is depth. Miami, Ohio, they have depth, and I think that's something that could really come into play here at this game. Mm-hmm. Getting multiple guys on the field to play and to make plays. But yeah, like we talked about, this is going to be a lot of fun. I think this is also a game where we can learn a lot about the Red Hawks and how they're going to prepare, how they're going to be this year. I think this is a game that could really define their season. Even if again, they play it close at the end. I mean, watch out because they can make some plays somewhere.
Well, and I'll tell you this. Last year, Miami led the conference in scoring defense. They allowed 22.6 points a game. On the road, they were second in the conference, only behind Western Michigan. In rush defense last year, Miami paced the conference, only allowed 135 rushing yards a game. On the road, they were second, only behind Northern Illinois, allowing 122. They were better on the road against the run than they were at home.
Yeah.
Pass defense, again, Miami, Ohio, not as great in this category, still top half of the conference, under 240 a game. This is a team who I really think, they were fifth in the conference on the road, allowing 246. So a little bit less defensive in the pass game, but still one of the best defenses in the conference. They were a top 3 total defense in the MAC last year, only behind Toledo and Western Michigan, who both are returning great defenses. Miami's going to play them tough. Miami's going to show up. They're going to play a tough football game. For me, this one's very similar to Sparty versus Central. Red Hawks win this one close, or Miami just absolutely gets the doors blown off of them by the Hurricanes. I think what's interesting is this lead up, and I mentioned it on our Twitter, and I caught a little bit of heat from some Miami, Florida fans. So I want to clarify. The U is not back if you beat the Miami Red Hawks.
No.
The U, and again, I'm going to catch so much flack for this. The U hasn't been around since the 2003 national championship game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I have a lot of love and respect. I have a lot of love and respect for the Miami Hurricanes. One of the premier programs of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s in college football. They have not been a premier program since they lost that national championship to a great Ohio State team. I want to be very, very clear. That Ohio State team, was the first college football team to go 14-0.
Hmm.
So that, very, very good football to be played there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, without a doubt.
but the U is not back if you beat the Miami Redhawks. Your fans, I love the trash talk. I love the back and forth. I love the fact that a diss track was made for the Miami Redhawks. But if you listen to that press conference with Brett Gabbert, and the press is begging him to say something,
Hmm.
you listen to it. It's very clear he's not trying to say anything, and they're goading him into doing so.
Sure.
That's not Brett Gabbert. If you listen to any other press conference with Brett Gabbert, that's not the kind of player he is. But Miami took it, Miami fans took it and they ran with it, had a diss track out the same day. All I'm saying is, Miami, you are not back if you beat the Redhawks.
Right.
And that's if. I'm not guaranteeing a win for the Hurricanes.
No, not at
If
all.
you beat the Redhawks, you are not back.
Nope, not at all.
Moving forward to the Saturday slate. Now we got that out of the way. I'm sure that'll be highlighted and listened to by a few Florida fans, and we'll catch our own flack for it. But we've got 7 teams playing on Saturday. We got Ball State at Kentucky, Bowling Green at Liberty, Northern Illinois at Boston College, and Long Island at Ohio, all kicking off the noon slate. I'm liking the chances for the MAC to at least go 2-2. In fact, I almost guarantee it. I don't want to say I do, but I almost guarantee it. Win against Long Island for the Bobcats. Northern Illinois, I think, beats Boston College. You're in Boston at noon on a Saturday. Boston, I'm sorry, gets excited for professional football with the New England Patriots. They do not get excited for college football with the Boston College Eagles.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think 2-2 is fair. I've seen some rumblings on Twitter where people think Ball State can pull up an upset at Kentucky, and that's again one of those ones where I would not be entirely shocked to see that. But I think 2-2 is absolutely fair. Liberty, they're not the Liberty of old. Obviously Hugh Freeze is gone, so that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But I think the BG does have a lot of holes to fill from last year's squad.
Mm-hmm.
Northern Illinois. You and I are going to be doing a lot with Northern Illinois this year. You're going up there to Cal. I'll see them in Lincoln. Um, you know, the 6th-year man and Rocky Lombardi taking him on the road to Boston College. I think they do come out with a win there. And then we talked about it briefly earlier with Long Island at OU. Long Island went to Toledo and played them relatively tough early on last year, right? And then Toledo blew the doors off in the second half.
I don't know if it was tough. I'm going to try to pull that schedule up really quick.
Yeah,
It was
I forget.
37-0 in favor of the Rockets.
But for some reason, I feel like Toledo started off super slow that game.
I think Toledo started off, in the first quarter, Toledo started off real slow, and then dumped 35 points on the rest of the way, or 34 points on the rest of the way. But yeah, Toledo started that first quarter off a little bit slow. Long Island, though, you look at their schedule last year, they won 4 games.
Yeah.
They went 4-7. Like, they beat Duquesne at Duquesne, Central Connecticut, Stonehill, and Sacred Heart. I don't see Long Island winning this game. In fact, I would very much expect that they don't win this game. In fact, I'd be very surprised if they put up more than, 17 points. Ohio's going to win this game. They're going to dominate. It's not even really worth discussing. And Ohio should dominate. You're playing an FCS opponent who was Division II, I think, like 3 or 4 years ago. So, yeah, you should win this game. Should be no brainer. Again, Northern Illinois, Boston College. I think this is a very winnable game for the Huskies. ESPN matchup predictor gives the Huskies a 30% chance of winning this game, which is a lot higher than some of these other games for MAC versus Power 5. I like Northern Illinois in this one. It's going to come down to the defense and what Rocky Lombardi can do. Bowling Green at Liberty. This one's an interesting one. You talked about them losing the coach. Bowling Green, almost a 30% chance to win this one as well. I would not be shocked if Bowling Green won this one at Liberty. Ball State at Kentucky. I mean, yes, they don't have Will Levis anymore. Ball State's figuring out their quarterback situation. We had a battle in camp up until last week.
Yeah.
So, I'm not a fan of this is no knock on Coach New, no knock on anybody, but I'm never comfortable when a team doesn't have a quarterback figured out well before week 1.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me a little nervous, but Ball State's got it figured out. They're getting their guys prepped. Is there a chance the MAC goes 4-0? Yes. Most likely the MAC goes 2-2, and I'm chalking up the win for Northern Illinois. Bowling Green could beat Liberty. Those fans get pretty crazy down there at Liberty, but I think Lynchburg, not a bad place to play college football. You're going against a quality G5 school. It's a good way for Bowling Green to cut their teeth to start the season.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Then we got our last 3 games of the weekend. We've got Akron at Temple. That's a 2:00 game. I don't see the Zips winning this one. Zips are one of my sleeper teams this year. I have them going 6-6 or better. I don't see them picking up this win at Temple. This is just a tough one for Akron. Temple, again, a former MAC opponent, but Akron is still figuring stuff out. DJ Irons is going to do great things. Alex Adams is going to do great things. But this is not the first win of Akron's season. Might be next week, but it's not this week.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one because I could see a situation where Akron does pull this off. I think that this is a big year for Coach Moorhead, and we're talking about DJ Irons and the talent that they have. I could see it in a situation where Akron does pull this off, but I also think everything's going to have to go perfect for them. The turnovers are going to have to be minimal or none, essentially. They have to run the ball well, or throw the ball extremely well. But like I said, I can see a situation where they do pull it off, but I don't think they do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they play Temple extremely tough though.
Fair enough. Should be a fun one there. Over in Philadelphia, we've got Buffalo at Wisconsin. The Luke Fickell era at Wisconsin begins. Buffalo they've been pretty successful the last couple of years. They are coming off of a bowl win. They beat Akron at the end of the season in a crazy game. I don't like Buffalo's chances of winning this one, but I like Buffalo's chances of making it interesting, at least for the first quarter, and kind of pushing Wisconsin around a little bit. I think Luke Fickell is going to get his guys settled down, get them settled in. Wisconsin's going to run away with this one, but I like Buffalo showing up early and saying, "Hey, we're here to play football," and giving them at least a first quarter scare.
Yeah, I think Buffalo plays competitively for that first quarter. But you're right. I think Wisconsin with Luke Fickell, I think they're going to be too much at home, especially in Madison. It's a tough place to play, no matter who you are, what conference, what division, whatever you are. It's a tough place to play.
Mm-hmm.
And first game of the year, especially at Wisconsin, Luke Fickell's first home game, the joint's going to be jumping, and I think it's going to be a tough place for Buffalo. But we can also learn a lot about Buffalo this week 1.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're really, really going to get a good idea of what Buffalo can be, at least to some degree. It'll be interesting up there at Camp Randall up in Madison. And then the last game of the weekend, the game I'm really looking forward to, mostly because I'll be there. We've got the Toledo Rockets heading to Champaign, Illinois to take on the Fighting Illini. I know what I want to say, so I'm going to let you talk about this game.
This is an interesting one because Illinois really fell off towards the end of last year. Had an opportunity to beat Michigan. Michigan came back and won by the field goal, I believe.
1917.
Yeah, 1917. Yeah. This is a game that is extremely winnable for Toledo. on the road, night game in Champaign. Champagne's a great place to go, great stadium, great place to see a game. Um, but I really think that this is an opportunity. I think this is a winnable game for the Rockets, and I think that's who I'm picking to win it. The simple fact that there's a lot of questions for Illinois. They lost a couple of guys to the draft and transfers and things like that. They had to name a new starting quarterback this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Former Ball State quarterback John Paddock is at Illinois now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's a lot of unquestioned. I think a lot of questions for Illinois, but there's a lot of certainty with Toledo and who they are and what they have. I think that overpowers Illinois, and Toledo comes out with a win.
Well, and I think when you look at it, Chase Brown, their star running back from last year, he's now the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito, the quarterback from last year, he's no longer with the team. Looking at what Illinois did on offense last year in some of these wins, they beat Iowa 9-6.
Mhm.
They beat Chattanooga, an FCS program, 31-0. They beat Virginia 24-3. They clearly have a really good defense. I'm not going to discredit that. In fact, they're probably going to have a top 5 defensive line in the country this year. They've got a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. My 2 questions for this game: do they have the cornerbacks who can shut down the Toledo receivers? And if they get into a shootout, do they have the offense that can keep up with a healthy Toledo offense? Whatever happens in that category, that's going to be the difference in this game.
Mhm.
I think Toledo has the tools and the athletes to compete with Illinois. It's going to come down to coaching.
Yeah,
Jason Candle can outcoach Brett Bielema. Toledo leaves Champaign with a win.
sure.
We've also seen Jason Candle, and this is fair criticism. We've seen Jason Candle struggle to close out big wins.
Mhm.
There's an opportunity to beat Notre Dame a couple years ago. Toledo didn't get it done. I mean, it was literally under like a minute and a half. They lost to San Diego State last year at San Diego State in the last minute. They lost to Bowling Green in the final minute. Now, I think, you've got Vincent Karras, the defensive coordinator. He's done an excellent job of turning around this whole Toledo defensive unit. Got to keep that moving forward. I'm trying to say this with as little bias as possible. This game right here defines the season for the Toledo Rockets. If they win this game, I think they are the instant favorite to be a New Year's 5 team. If not the instant favorite, they're immediately thrown into the discussion.
Sure. And I think, too, this is a huge prove-it game for Coach Candle, because you talked about those close opportunities he's had over the past couple of seasons. And this could be a game that could really – I mean, he's already one of the GOATs at Toledo. That's unquestioned. But if he could win this game on the road at Illinois, this could be huge for him. And like I said, the trajectory of the season for the Rockets.
When you look at what Toledo did last year, kind of just looking at everything else, minus the loss to Ohio State, every loss was a touchdown or less.
Yep.
So the stuff's there. The tools are there. Now, in Toledo's defense to a degree, they had a patchwork offensive line. I mean, they brought over a defensive guy to play center.
Yeah.
Like they stitched an offensive line together, still banged out 9 wins. With a healthy offensive line, they've got Tyler Long back this year. That's a big one. They've got Nick Rossi back this year. That's another big one. 2 guys they lost to injury to start the season. Both of those guys back. This offensive line is healthier and better. And now you have depth for guys who played for them all year last year. And that's going to be the tale for a lot of these MAC programs. Is there's a lot of depth behind guys who were injured a year ago. If Toledo can find a way to win this game in Champaign, Illinois, 7:30 on the Big Ten Network, I don't see a game the rest of the way that Toledo loses. And I hesitate saying that, because I don't want to put that much pressure on fans, on, players, whatever. But I really, truly believe that this is the defining game of the Toledo Rockets season. and it's not even a conference game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is enormous, and not only for Toledo, but in the conference in general. You
Mm-hmm.
know, come away. We're obviously hoping to come away with a couple wins this week, but a win over Big Ten is huge for not only Toledo but the conference as well, and the trajectory going forward because we do have more conference games with the Big Ten here in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So this could set the tone not only for Toledo but the conference as well this season.
Yep, absolutely. Let's dive into this. Which one is your game of the week? If you had to pick one of these games on here, which one is the game of the week for you?
Obviously I could go Miami just for the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those ones that is easy, right? But I think Central at Michigan State is going to be my game to watch this weekend.
Okay. So that's going to be your game of the week. I think, and I know I'll be there, but I think that Toledo at Illinois is going to be my game of the week. It's just, there's a big opportunity, both Central and Toledo, to knock off a Big Ten opponent. So if either one of them can get that done, that's going to be huge for the conference. Those two are good. I think they're both quality games of the week. Bert Emanuel leading that offense for Central Michigan, DeQuan Finn leading the offense for Toledo. Good opportunities for both of them to potentially secure and lock up a win. Who is your sleeper team of the week?
My sleeper team is Akron.
Okay.
I talked about, I would not be entirely shocked if they went to Temple, kept it close, or won it.
Okay. I like the Akron pick. I am going to go a different direction. My sleeper team is Ball State at Kentucky. We saw Northern Illinois play them real close last year, and they had Will Grier. They had their star quarterback. They don't have their star quarterback this year. I think Ball State, there's opportunities. They're a little bit thin at wide receiver. There's opportunities here. I think that this one's a little bit closer than what people are expecting, and that should be a good game on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to Ball State at Kentucky. We have a mailbag question, and we kind of discussed this already, but we'll just kind of recap it again. Bowling Green, CMU, and Miami. Which one is most likely to pull off the upset? All three are 10 to 20 point underdogs, depending on the sports book. It was also noted that the money has been moving towards Bowling Green all week. They went from a 12.5 point underdog to a 9.5 point underdog since Sunday. I don't want to say Bowling Green upsetting or beating Liberty wouldn't be an upset, because I do think it would be an upset to some degree. But I think you're looking at a quality G5 program versus a Bowling Green team who has done nothing but rebuild and restock and just get better. So to me, it doesn't feel like it. Calling it an upset doesn't feel right. I get why you want to call it an upset. So Bowling Green sure is on that radar, but I think I'm with you. I think it's probably CMU of those three: CMU, BG, and Miami.
Yeah, I think so too.
So there you have it, folks. We there's our pick. Central Michigan is the one who's most likely to pull the upset. Should be a good game. Great slate of games this week. I'm really looking forward to getting back to watching some action. And yeah, I'm ready for football, man.
Absolutely. Now that we've got week 0 out of the way, obviously we had a great performance from OU last week, but now we've got everybody playing. This will be a fun weekend, starting up tomorrow night, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't, please head on over to our Twitter. If you are an Apple user, we have our beta for our mobile app. It is live. I'll be pushing updates through periodically as you guys continue to send in feedback. Right now, we got about 50 beta testers, people checking it out. We got a little bit of feedback from a couple individuals. So just really looking forward to getting that finalized, getting that completely published and ready to go. I've been chipping away on that. Thanks again to your guys' suggestions. You'll see a couple updates that I think you guys will be happy with before we do the final launch, the full product launch. But thank you in advance to all of our beta testers for continuing to check that out. We really appreciate it. Go follow us on social media. We're trying to get our engagement numbers up, get our followers numbers up, and to try to push things forward. So the more people see us, the more our content's on the timeline, And well, everybody needs a little bit of action in their life. So go follow us on Twitter, X, whatever Elon Musk is going to call it this week. You can follow us at College Sport Pod. You'll see us over there. Big shout out to all of you guys for helping us crack the 2,000 mark before the kick of college football season last week. We really appreciate that. We didn't publicize that goal. That was just kind of a goal we talked about internally. So thank you guys for helping us crack that. We definitely appreciate all the love and the follower support. You can find us over on Instagram. We cracked 200 this last week on Instagram. So a big thank you to you guys on that as well. You can find us there at the CSC Podcast. Check out our website, www.thecscpodcast.com. Going to be making a few website tweaks as well. And again, you can check out the app in the beta. That is an Apple beta only. Unfortunately, sorry, Android users, not available for you yet. The Apple beta is available on our Twitter page, our X page, our Elon Musk social media page. If you need it and you want it, give me a shout. Let me know. I'll get it over to you. Last thing definitely would help us out. You guys could subscribe on anywhere you find your podcast, whether that be Google Podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Apple, wherever. Subscribe, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the more opportunities we get as well with our content out there. So please help us out on that front as well. We really, really appreciate it. AJ, do you have anything else before we sign off this week?
Let's play some action.
Let's play some action. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
See you.